the Furnace and then gain extra resources, a huge play. And in late game, you can honestly just throw it for like one poke, an extra damage. She's going to be playing very aggressively on turn 1, popping off the Seeker's Mitts, a card she very much... we talked about this earlier, and she's been collecting lots of cold foils for this deck. And she finally got her cold foil alpha gauntlets. And then immediately this card came out and said, all right, well, yeah, that card, yeah, let's just get rid of it. So she went on and got Seeker's Mitt.
I remember, a few months ago when Mara was still trying to complete the collection of the Marvel Dragon. She's like, oh, I'm missing like one of these and one of these. And I said, okay, cool. Then you'll have 3 of each. She's like, no, then I'll have 6 of each. I was like, what are you talking about? She said, because I don't want to waste time flipping cards. So I have all the dragons on the side as well so that there's no time, pulling them out of the sleeve, flipping them over. I don't want to waste time. Some of these games go long. I said, okay, why don't you just use normal cards? And then she made sure that to let us know that James White has decreed she is the official Empress of Volcor, and you need Marvels all down the line.
Mm-hmm. Now this is it's kind of tough because as Mara, really just about any Dromai would prefer to go second now that those gauntlets exist. Now that you have access to Seeker's Mitts, where you can basically just defend, pop off, and create an Ash on your opponent's turn, and then go about making a board of dragons or throwing conventional attacks, in this case for Mara, and then making dragons that threaten damage. She would prefer that to happen on the second play. But going first, you're sort of stuck with like awkward draws like this, where you haven't created a ton of Ash. You're kind of having to manipulate your cards. You've ended basically this turn with an Ashwing. Now, this is a Ashwing for 4 because it was created off of Skittering Sands. And it does represent possibly more damage. But Brody here is going to weigh his options and decide to line up a possible block, which benefits him because he's going to draw up at the end of the turn. Oh, maybe not. Maybe she's not even giving him the opportunity to attack into it and filter the hand. No, he's just Voltairing, I think.
And that's perfectly fine. Mm-hmm. It allows you to go ahead and draw up here. I don't think there's ever a situation where you want to do 2. Now, this is okay. I mean, you can see Brody saying, oh, come on now. And, yeah, that's...
So if you don't understand what's happening here, Mara chose to pass priority, intending to end the turn. And in response, Brody says, okay, well, let me at least load an arrow and try to set up a 5-card hand on my official turn 1. And Mara, seeing that, says, okay, well, cool, I'll just send 4 at you, and now you have to decide between the cards that you weren't going to filter. Are you going to now filter them? And looks like Brody is going to chuck out one of those.
So the reason why that Ashwing, which is normally a 1 attack, is a 4 is because Mara played Skittering Sands to get that Ashwing up to 4. It's going to be blocked, no problem. So 1 damage leaks through. Interesting note of the equipment choice here is Mara Faris reviving the Arcanite Skullcap, which was a headpiece that was always prominent. It was the go-to generic headpiece for defense, but it was replaced with Crown of Providence for utility, but here it is again.
Yeah, so we talked about this actually, and this was one of the things she brought up at the very outset of the tournament, before it even started, in fact, and I actually talked to another Dromai player that mentioned it as well. The beauty of Arcanite Skullcap in this deck is that against Lexi, you have 3 opportunities, or really 2 opportunities, to block 3. You can block 2 and then follow it up with block 1. And what this allows you to do is chuck a card plus the extra block on Skullcap if you're at less life, so that you can block out some of those key on hits that Lexi might present. And she made the switch off of Crown of Dominion, my favorite card that creates a gold token, and said, you know what, the Seeker's Mitts covers that already. Now I'm just going to chuck in Arcanite Skullcap and gain the extra block.
So many options now, and again, cards that wheel back into relevance is always nice to see. The game constantly in flux here, and as we stand, Lexi versus Dromai here as the 4th quarterfinal match in Baltimore, the Pro Tour. Flake alongside Armada. It's so good to have you guys here as the fireworks are starting. As Brody loads up the first arrow, fires it. It's a 5 go again. Not much presence from the dragon side here, as Mara usually takes some time to develop the dragon. She knows what she's doing. She's the 5th seed. She's a Dromai main. So as it stands, this is a good opportunity for Brody to start attacking on pressure. And a lot about this is that the Dromai player takes some time to establish the board, and during that time, there's going to be some damage that's absorbed. That's why the Arcanite Skullcap is a reliable choice to get that 2 block, because you only get the benefit of the extra block value if you're at a lower life total.
Yes,
so Mara's
exactly.
going to take some damage here and going to really just get the full value out of that headpiece.
Now, coming out of that awkward turn 0, which just really only netted you, a point of damage and one dragon that was removed from the field, one ash. We're trying to establish a little bit of a board. The interesting thing about Mara's deck is it's not running nearly as many of the dragons you would expect in a more mid-range controlling Dromai list. Instead, it's just running the value dragons, the ones that are really impactful. She's showing the ash to them because the ash is indeed consumed by these dragons. But yes, these are the Marvel dragons. Yes, she has in the deck Marvel dragons facing front side, and then off to the side, the beautiful Marvel side of the Marvel dragons, which is just the right way to do it. Now, she does have to take damage to play both of these cards because, Remorseless's effect is on, but I mean, really, when you have that much drip, do you care?
Mara indicating that she is sponsored by Jeff Bezos, apparently, to have that kind of just on the side. Those are Marvel dragons that are on the bench. They're not even. They're just waiting. So
waiting in the wings, as it were.
Definitely. Oh God.
You're welcome. You're welcome so much.
Hold on. I need to acknowledge.
Oh, and this is a huge play. So she chose to attack here, and it's a bit of a risky maneuver, but you're wanting to push damage because this is essentially a race deck. But he had the battering bolt, and there's only 5 poppers in this deck, but he found it on turn 2, and in response of that pop, she's going to play out a Thamai, which is funny because you don't necessarily think, hey, I'm going to just jam Thamai down, but it stops defense reactions and instants from being played, and it's just a nice, solid 4 health body.
3/4 is a good body to drop, definitely, and again, aggression. Maintaining a presence on the board. If Brody doesn't find an Endless Arrow anytime soon, it could be dangerous. Endless Arrow is one of the key tools. You mentioned 5 poppers, but if you got to get down and dirty here, which Brody doesn't play in this deck, then you're going to have to do it the old-fashioned way. You're going to have to shoot him out of the sky. So Brody's looking for an Endless Arrow in order to go ahead and perhaps crush some of these dragons. But like you mentioned, those very valuable poppers in the deck are dwindling. He's 20% gone. He's got 4 left in the deck. Brody here inquiring.
I think this is a judge question on the action point resolution. She had 2 action points. The Phantasm was triggered on the previous dragon, and that is going to lose her the action point there, but she had 1 maintained action point and is able to play this out. Now, Go Again still there, so everything should check out. Outside of something we possibly missed here on our end, she should be clear to, trot that dragon out, that Thamai, a beautiful dragon that represents the judgment of Solana, and also I got to spoil that card.
It's great. You may have seen on Brody's side, I just want to make sure to clarify, that was not Arnold Schwarzenegger's gigantic bicep. That was head judge Josh Scott clarifying. Yes. I can see the confusion, though. Mm-hmm. Ultimately here, that was all resolved, and the Thamai is still there. Brody just, evaluating the cards. Brody known for taking his time.
Yes, he's perhaps the most meticulous player. I think that there's a lot of players out there that would love to wear that crown because of what it means for being a top-level player, but I'd have to give it to Brody. After having him watch, just literally, I've seen this kid deliberate over whether or not he should block with one blue or another blue in what would appear to be almost a pointless scenario because you are all but going to win the match anyway. And he literally labored between a blue versus a blue, and his labor actually paid off because he blocked with the correct one, even though everyone said just block with one of them. He blocked with the correct one and then immediately won the game because he made the right choice.
And sometimes that decision that you're making now might not have relevance for this turn, next turn, or 5 turns down the line. It might have relevance 20 turns down the line because that blue might be a game changer versus the other one that you donate. So Brody here at 36, Mara at 32, taking most of the damage off of that early turn, but she's got a Chromai, a Thamai, and it's up to Brody now. So here it comes. We're going to start just searing them out of the sky. They're clear skies for Brody. Mara's dragons have been brought down to earth, and he's got a 4-card hand.
Now, the question that I have, and he drew into a fantastic little hand here if he's presented some conventional attacks, because he still has the sort of emergency release pull of, and there's a conventional attack. Emergency release pull of the old Codex of Frailty there. But attacking for 5 Go Again is generally what you choose here from Mara's perspective, even though we do have Snapdragon Scalers for some extra push on Snatch. Generally, we just go the old 5 Go Again.
Enlightened Strike, a classic card, is so versatile here. 5, Go Again, tucking a card underneath. This is one of the staples that are out there. Art of War, Command and Conquer, but E-Strike was the OG from Welcome to Wraith. It is so effective, so versatile, and this is followed up by what you like to call
Snatch on a Stick.
I mean, I would never call it that, but that is absolutely what I'm going for.
Now, I want to make a point of this. If this game ends up going into the second cycle, look at what Mara's done here. She's chosen to pitch a zero-cost dragon in favor of obviously creating an Ash-neutral play here because she is completely Ashless. But she's pitching a fantastic late-game dragon in Asvalai, and that, coupled with some of the other like Burn Them Alls and other sort of combos you can really, find inherent in the deck, she could be setting up for a late game push. But the real question becomes, is she siding in this matchup the double Remembrance? Because if she's not, then Brodi taking away these dragons off the board and expending his resources to remove them is really, really good and really bad for Mara.
Mara's going to see the second cycle. I don't see why this game wouldn't go to see that Asvalai again. The reason why you pitch it early is because, well, Bullseye Bracers does have AB1. Brodi Spurlock most likely going to break those at the first ideal opportunity, and once that's gone, Asvalai's got a free reign to go ahead and rain some of that arcane damage. So pitching that card away now is Mara saying, all right, it's a lot less effective while Bullseye Bracers are up, so I'm going to see this later, likely after you've popped the Bullseye Bracers, and then this card becomes so much more dangerous to Brodi. It's going to be later in the game, you won't have the protection, and there's a good chance your life total is going to be in a very, very fragile state.
And that's truly how and where Asvalai excels. You can play it because it's a zero cost, it's easy to play at any real point, but it excels in the late game when it can threaten unblockable damage in the form of Arcane. This is a Go Again Remorseless being shot over. Looks like it's not targeting Kyloria. Most likely our follow-up will remove Kyloria if you're being extra judicious as Brodi. But Mara, considering her options, when you don't have Ash to just kind of play with, you struggle a little bit with this deck. You need some just sort of like receptacle, kind of like a bucket that you just carry around with you, of Ash that you could just toss into the wind and then conjure up these dragons. And if you don't have any of that, you're going to really struggle.
Some pocket sand.
That's right. That's exactly what Dromai needs, is a pocket full of sand.
That and some cards would be helpful.
Yeah,
You're showing up with a bucket.
Yes. Yeah, just a bucket. You don't actually bring anything but the bucket.
Oh, boy. All right. Well, Remorseless is on the stack over here. 5, Go Again. Again, on hit, it's going to really create some issues for Mara, who might want to be going wide here, as basically, any action that's played is going to tax her 1 life. Kyloria, however, is one of those dragons that you definitely want to address. Of the dragons that Mara's playing in her deck, where would you rank Kyloria in terms of threat value?
I would probably say third most. I mean, this is definitely a more aggressive list, but our Chromais allow for so much flexibility. Our Mira guys basically allow us to just play the game on a completely different axis, saying, yeah, your poppers don't matter. You may only have 4 left, but now they're might as well be 0. And so those are both huge threats that we saw early game already. And then Kyloria is really like a turn extender, because in most matchups, its text about possibly taking an item is totally moot. What it really does is draw you a card with Go Again. It's just like playing, any 4 cost or 4 power attack with Go Again.
Brodi, no care for the wildlife, just out there hunting dragons. Why not? Takes that Kyloria out of the sky, and again, it is a very dangerous dragon. It does draw cards, extends those turns for redline decks. Most of the stuff that they're going to draw is going to have a low price tag, so that there's going to be some implications there. This is a codex, or one of the various codices.
Codices, that's right, yeah. I'm not sure he's running the other codex of Inertia. Looks like he has 1 copy in the deck. Nevertheless, this is a fantastic effect. It's not going to force a card out of Mara's hand. She already has an arsenal, but it means his turn is most definitely extended.
If there's one hero that's relatively unfazed by the Codex of Frailty, it is probably Dromai. It's the Frailty's not going to affect the weapon, obviously. It's not going to affect the allies, as they're not going to be, -1. And To be fair, Mara's probably not going to be playing too many attacks out of the arsenal. We might see that, but ultimately she could be patient with it. Codex of Frailty, frankly, Dromai laughs that off.
Wow, look at this top deck. So 3 of a Kind makes its way into the old arsenal off of the Heatseeker draw, and he gets the Ponder to draw into the hand. She's thinking about, I think, responding to this, possibly with some amount of response. Nope, she's just going to pass on over an arsenal. Maybe Brody was considering some other options there, but either way, we have the old draw up and pass on over tomorrow with a, I believe, 4-card hand. But this is what the deck does. It's a race, and I say Ravenous Rabble for 4, go again.
Revealing a Command and Conquer, that's something that Brody's certainly going to note because that is a dangerous card against any Ranger. And on a 3 of a Kind turn, though, that is going to mean that, if Mara wants to covet that Command and Conquer, like we mentioned earlier, she has, 6 cards in the entire list that are not red. So paying for a 2-cost card is a pretty tall order for a heavy red set list. But at the moment now, Brody's on the hook here for this 4 from the Ravenous Rabble. But look at what he's got going on. He's got that 3 of a Kind. He's got 4 cards in hand and 1 locked and loaded here. So Mara Faris is probably suspecting that Brody's going to just disrespect this entire turn because he's going to be coming back guns blazing.
Well, I mean, he may have reason to. He's looking at a 4-card hand, and that hand already looks great. And depending on that arsenal, he could be loaded for bear and possibly ready to play the biggest turn we've seen on stream all weekend long with what he could draw off of this. We'll see how this ends up playing out. But Yenderai, a fantastic little dragon that makes it very difficult for Lexi actually to deal with outside of a popper. This card can actually be kind of tough because it has that endurance counter. It prevents the first 3 damage it would take, and then it has 3 health on top of it. So you really need to send 6 at it.
Yenderai on the stack here, 3 damage. Again, the endurance counter is going to protect it a little bit here, unless Brody wants to devote a popper, but this is one of the least appealing dragons that you want to address. It's going to be bothersome, no problem, but the on-hit effects are none. It's just a little bit of life. Taking that life off your total is no big deal. Brody's doing the math. You can see him. I'm like this as well. If I can visualize it, I have to sort of play it out, do the counting and doing all the theatrics with your hands here. It looks like he's actually going to go ahead and preserve life. And the reason you do this, a lot of players will be like, yeah, whatever. I just want to get to my turn. But if you're ending that turn with too many cards in your hand, that's a lost opportunity to actually protect that life total. So Brody just not giving any leeway where it shouldn't exist. He wants to make sure that his turns are absolutely flawless and efficient.
Yeah, here's the draw up. He did draw into, I think, 2 actions that we can't really play this turn, but could set you up next turn pretty well. One of those is a Codex of Frailty, the second we've seen this game, but he does have perhaps the best starter for any turn in Lexi, and that's Bolton Shot, which is going to be able to drop into the arsenal off Voltaire and gain go again. I don't know about you, but I think this is probably the turn, looking at a hand, if he's got enough arrows, where you consider popping Bullseye Bracers to really try to push extra damage.
Mara just taking a sip because she knows that this is one of the turns that she's going to have to really buckle down and probably take it off the chin, frankly. Brody's starting the turn with a 3 of a Kind. Now, again, 3 of a Kind costs you 1, but it draws you 3, but you can only play out of Arsenal. So, cards like Rain Razors, cards like Art of War are offline. He's flipping a CNC as well. So, how is this turn come out? I see a Winter's Bite in his hand. He's running. He has 9 in the list. So, you know that card's going to be coming up frequently if he packed all of them in there, and he's going to load up the first arrow, and what is he going to be firing?
Oh, it looks like he's starting off with Heatseeker. Another copy of Heatseeker made its way into his hand, and he can threaten the 5 go again and the on-hit flip the top card from your deck face up into Arsenal. So basically kind of like a pseudo reload mechanic at the end of your turn, or you could also think of it like a pseudo ponder token trigger, because it oftentimes a ponder token just ends up giving you the Arsenal.
Opting to go face here, none of the dragon on the board is not necessarily too threatening. I suspect that if Mara had other dragons on the board, like a Miragai, for example, there might be some more arrows that are geared towards clearing the skies, but Brody looks like he's got just a clear path right to Dromai here to start ticking down that life total. Mara Faris at 22 now. Brody ahead. Now, the difference here, this puts the skull cap online.
Exactly, and I think this was one of the big keys of this turn, is that she's actually okay to take some amount of damage here because it allows her to block more effectively with that Arcanite skull cap. And again, this game is a race. With the way that Mara has built her deck, she doesn't necessarily want to be blocking too terribly much, just in moments where it's most advantageous for an on hit. And so it's okay to take some amount of damage to turn on that skull cap.
Looking to activate the bow one more time. The bookend to this attack pattern here is going to be Command and Conquer, loading up a bolt and shot for +1 with Go Again. The reload effect is not going to be applicable here because the arsenal is occupied at the current moment. Even though New Horizons allows for an extra slot, what reload says is there's no cards in arsenal, but Command and Conquer looming large there.
Well, this is a huge turn because after this, he's going to be able, if he chooses to pop the Bullseye Bracers and drop that Endless Arrow into Arsenal, and you could finish the turn that way. You could also just pitch that Endless Arrow or pitch the Codex of Frailty to send the CNC. Either way, you have so many options, and all of them are horrible if you're Mara.
There's the utilization of the Skull Cap getting 2 block because the life total is lower. That's a full cover of the 5 attack bolt and shot. Go Again is on the stack here, so we're going to see another volley here from one Brodi Spurlock. The question is it going to be Command and Conquer? Is it going to be the Endless Arrow that he's holding on to? The Command and Conquer in Arsenals, it's not what you want there. I think you have to clear that out. There's nothing you can do with it there. It is going to sit there and fester there. You have to take this opportunity to send it.
If you have the opportunity as well to go super wide if you wanted to with Snapdragon Scalers and string together even more damage, but the slower, possibly more cautious play would be to just pitch that Codex of Frailty perhaps, and then send the CNC threatening the Arsenal. And it looks like that is going to be the play. What's he going to pitch here? Going to pitch the Endless Arrow. Yeah, the option there for both of those seems strong. Just pitching either of those doesn't matter too terribly much. And she is going to, I believe, just accept this damage. Or maybe
I think it was covered up.
She covered it up completely. There you go.
Brody packing in the Codex of Frailty.
Yep. Just rearranging his discard in the order, in that graveyard, in the order that things were played, so it is correct. Again, very meticulous. Look at that. Most players will just drop that in, but the order that it was played for him, as someone who really kind of memorizes that stuff, is important.
All right, so that was a very big turn for Brody, even though the work that was put in, that was actually connected wasn't all that much. Mara, did what she had to do, and unfortunately for Brody, 3-of-a-kind turn didn't connect for too much damage, but at the same time, she did buy some of the equipment block, which is great. There's a pitch of the Burn Them All, so much like the Asvalai that was pitched earlier on, as long as Bullseye Bracers is online, cards like Burn Them All and Asvalai are not going to be as effective.
So she is going to start by pitching a red to create Rake the Embers, and that's going to make 1 Ashwing. And yeah, she has been truly starved for Ash this game and this turn, particularly it shows, because that is a card that really allows you to build the board wide. And unfortunately for her, her hand has just been set up in a way that doesn't really let her capitalize on it. But she's going to throw a Dust Up anyway, and that could create her an Ash and then an Ashwing.
I love this because Brody and Mara are communicating back and forth. They're laughing. They're having a good time. I feel like Brody's saying, like, oh, come on. Of all the cards that you could have thrown at me, you give me the Dust Up. Like, this is a really big pain in the ass because, like you mentioned, when you're starved for Ash that way, Dust Up does a lot of work.
I know. Looking at his hand, he's got another code. He's found all 3 codexes this game within these first few turns, and it's a little weird when you have a codex in hand and a codex in arsenal already, and you do have a bolt and shot and some ways to make that turn kind of go wide, but you're looking at 4 damage here, and you don't necessarily want them to have a board of Ashwings.
I love that both players are so emotive, so happy, and talking to each other. It would seem like if you just looked at the players, like, is this just like an armory? Like this is the same kind of banter that you would have at an armory. The stakes so much higher here. This is for a trip to the semifinals of the Pro Tour here in Baltimore, and that Dust Up looks like it actually connects, so it's going to be able to create another Ashwing. And honestly, Dust Up is a card that it blocks for 3, it hits a breakpoint, costs you nothing, and on connect, it does some really good work for what Dromai wants to do.
It really does. It is one of the best cards just all around in the deck. It's one of my favorite cards. Perhaps I just value it a little bit more just because it's so wonderful. Off of the back of even a Chromai, for example, you can just keep that turn going and create even more dragons. But here's the 30 Heatseeker as well. Heatseeker coming in super clutch this game. Just giving him so many cards in arsenal and pitched the Codex of Frailty to play it.
25-minute mark just passed by, and it looks like both players, again, at the halfway mark for their life totals as well. It's been a back-and-forth affair here. One 3-of-a-kind has been played. There hasn't been any Rain Razors. One Codex has been played on Brody's side. Mara, like you mentioned, starved for dragons for sure, but Ash is the first step in order to develop that board.
Yes, it's been a true struggle. The pressure that's been applied by Brody has really stymied her ability to create Ash, and that is an underratedly difficult thing to manage when playing as Dromai, because depending on what list you're playing, if you're playing a little bit more controlling, you have the chance to run into hands that are more blue-centric if you're running blue cards, or if you're Mara and you're kind of going tit for tat with the aggro player, you don't necessarily have the time or the space to keep a full hand to pitch into Ash generation.
So this is how this conversation is going right now, because they're both exploring each other's graveyards, right? So Mara's looking at this and saying, okay, what is this? Non-foil, non-Marvel, okay, scrub. Brody's like, all right, $20, $30, $50, $20, $30. It's like, there's like, what is wrong with it? And Mara's like, hey, you want to see my sideboard? You want to see my dragon stack of nothingness that I can't even register? Lots of bling on the board, and what's fascinating here is it's not just the Marvel Dragons. Look at the Ash Wings. These are tokens that she designed as well. Mm-hmm. The full art Dromai altar, she is making sure that she has just cemented her title as the Empress of Volcor.
Yeah, giving the 2-card block here, and that's generally not a card you want to block with, the Ravenous Rabble, because it's just so potent. But this is looking like another very powerful turn off of the back of both of these arrows and that Codex of Frailty to end the round. And this arsenal has been sitting there for many, many turns for Mara, and I'm curious to see if we kind of get a peek into what that could end up being. It could be a more defensive card, could be something like a Sigil of Solace, which is one of my favorite cards to throw into the arsenal and just sit on for a while. But I've talked to Mara about this on multiple occasions, and I know that she very much really likes to cycle that arsenal and really play into the arsenal, because oftentimes what she'll do is she will throw out the arsenal and then reset it with something like a Snatch for a 5-card hand over and over again.
Defensive capabilities of Mara here on the list. We've got the 1 sand cover, a 3-pack of Sigils of Solace, as well as Sink Below. So those are nice to have in the arsenal in case. You never know what might actually be in there, but ultimately defensive capability, she has been sitting on it for quite a while now, and at the moment we've got another Codex. So
yeah.
Ponder on one side, Frailty on the other, but the most important part here is that there is a Remorseless that is being fired her way at the end of this story. So 19-13, Brodi Spurlock on Lexi Livewire, looking for a trip to the semifinals. He has been so powerful in competitive Flesh and Blood, but this is going to be the feather in his cap. Everybody thinks that this kid is the future, and this is one way to start that story.
Well, this is such an interesting back-and-forth matchup, and we can compare this matchup to the matchup that we just watched on a more of a mid-range list into a virtually, well, a similar deck. I'll put it that way, a similar Lexi build, and they feel wildly different, where this feels a little bit more Ash-starved, and you have to feel a little bit more racy. We haven't had any of those huge spike turns from Mara's Dromai. We haven't seen too many of those long combat chains that can come, and part of it is because we haven't built the Ash Wings up. And I wonder if this play right here is going to reveal the arsenal being something like a Sigil of Solace for Mara, where she can finally, keep things going or clear that arsenal for possibly Kyloria to connect and give her a new one.
I think we could have just mic'd up both these players and gone for lunch, dude. Yeah. Honestly, like the amount of conversation that they're having, it looks like they're having a good time. I wish we could actually listen in.
I totally agree. I think they seem like they're having a fantastic time, and it does not look like what you would expect. It does not look like this quarterfinals match is like super tense and down to the wire. These players look like they're having a blast.
What's awesome about these two people also is that even though the stakes are so high here, I have seen both these players lose high-stake games. I've seen them win high-stakes games as well. Their demeanor typically is the same.
Even-keeled.
Exactly. It's like, hey, I lost. I'm going to learn from this. We're going to move forward. I just had a great time. I had some good time with some good people. So you could see them just, they've been there. They've done that. This is probably the highest stakes I think that they've ever played for at this point in their careers. So to see them still have that same demeanor is very inspiring. It just means that they are prepared, that they are so confident in their deck lists. And as you can see, the game is pretty tight at this moment as Mara has taken a beating. But there are the dragons. You've got Marcy, the Ashwing,
and Jeremy Jr.
Jeremy Jr. Yeah, JJ.
Yep. Those are the names that I give the Ashwings when I play Dromai.
Or is it Jeremy and Jeremy Jr.?
Jeremy Jr. There they are. Gonna block here, give the card draw. The go again is triggering here, taking some damage. And we see Brody kind of favoring the cards in hand simply because I think he has a 3 of a kind in there.
He does indeed.
And 2 arrows, so he dropped the non-arrow here. Oh, and that's a great card to have in the arsenal. No wonder it's been there. Waiting for the moment to shine is Chromai. We've been Ash-starved this whole time, but this is a card we want to establish and make Brody do something about.
I don't think he cares at this juncture. You saw what's in his hand. He's got a 3 of a kind, endless and an endless arrow, but also, let's be real here, he's got a bullseye bracers and his snapdragons, so he could clear out these dragons, pressure the life total, and keep in mind, Mara Faris is shedding life totals here because they're remorseless connected.
Yes, yeah, but you have to respect the board, especially when it looks like this now. This is a far different board than a single Ashwing. This board can threaten, let's count it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 damage a single turn, like every single turn, if it's left to rot and just sit there. And we'll see if Brody has the wherewithal to play it out, or if he just smells lethal. If he has blood in the water here off the Rain Razor's 3 of a kind.
That's what you have to open it up with, because Rain Razors has to be played before the 3 of a kind. So he's opening it up. He's basically signaling that this is going to hurt Mara, so buckle up. So Rain Razors opens it up. All the arrows are going to be +2. 3 of a kind drawing you 3 more cards, can only play out of Arsenal. We did see that there was an endless arrow in hand. That's all you need for the most part. And when you have a Snapdragon Scalers and the Bullseye Bracers, this could very easily potentially be a 4 or 5 arrow turn.
Yeah, and not only that, but it can also represent just massive amounts of damage and push possible lethal. Plus, he could end his turn with this Battering Bolt, which acts as a popper to really stop Mara's kind of backswing, pushing any of these dragons. But the benefit that we see that Mara has here is that she can give, at this point, every card in her hand for blocking. She can also possibly, depending on what she has in the arsenal, give the arsenal for blocking. And after doing so, she can still swing Chromai and Kyloria for 7 damage with no cards in hand, no resources up. Now, the downside, of course, is that Brody could stop that completely by popping Chromai.
Chromai, I think at a certain point, if Brody knows that he's not connecting for lethal on the last arrow, he's going to go after that Chromai. He can't let that live. The Kyloria can probably be dealt with, but Brody is going to have one hell of a turn here. It depends on what he drew from the 3 of a kind, but Endless Arrow is the first thing you want to really lean on to really be dangerous. Drill Shot starts things off again with the Rain Razors. That's a 6 go again. The connecting aspect of the Drill Shot does have implications here because of the fact that Skullcap is still online with 1 block, and the Furnace as well presents 1 block. So you got to cover this up or you're going to lose 1 point of block down the line.
Yeah, no, I think this is a perfect time where Mara just assesses the situation and goes, okay, this is time to get rid of some equipment and try to save my life total, particularly on a huge turn like this. But it's going to be a tough go of it once we have some of this stuff offline and we don't have Ash built up. Because if we lose Furnace here, which is a real possibility, we have major problems.
Brody presenting the first salvo here. It's Drill Shot for 6, go again. We know that the Rain Razors is online. Is that another Rain Razors in his arsenal as well?
Yes, and it is there ready to go, which is even more horrifying if you're on Mara's side of things. She's going to block here, trying to block advantageously, but I don't believe right now.
I smell a sand cover or a deer react.
Well, the problem is you can't play sand cover without any Ash.
I smell a deer react.
Okay, there it is.
Clip that out, please. Thank you. I forgot about that. I mean, let's be real. This has been difficult match for Mara to
Yep.
play in because she hasn't had those piles of ash that Dromai players usually have in droves. And in reality here, the fact that she got Brodi down to 12, even without that, with being starved for ash is an achievement in itself. And Brodi threatening that second Rain Razors. We saw this a couple matches ago. That was that nail biter of a match between Andrew and Max, and that Rain Razors, which really basically decided it, and it could be the same thing here. This time it's doubling up on the Rain Razors.
And to tell you the truth, Brodi has drawn extremely well in this game. We've seen a number of these Rain Razors, 3-of-a-kinds, Codex of Frailties. I mean, the deck is just, it's given him everything he needs to really try and close this out. And Brodi trying to punch his ticket into the semifinals and really make a name for himself, even more so than he's already done. It's a big deal, and Mara's going to have to really claw her way back in, pun intended, with the Dragons.
Mara, the anointed Empress of Volcor by James White himself, she is just trying to stay alive here as Brodi has presented one hell of a turn off the back of a 3-of-a-kind. It looks like he's just going to be happy with how that turned out here and maybe look to spread the damage. Not a double Rain Razor's turn, but how about 2 back-to-back Rain Razor's turns?
Now, this is very good because Mara was able to keep a hand through this damage, and she wasn't pressured for lethal and had to give up things. So even though there is a battering bolt in Brodi's hand, which she, having seen the list, she can count in her own head. Well, we started at 5 poppers. We've seen 1 popper thus far. So let me play the line that dances around that in the most way possible. Let's see if she starts off with conventional attacks, maybe like a 4 go again, something strong that can't be immediately stopped, or if she just chooses to start pitching into things.
Brodi Spurlock flying one of those very dangerous cards, the Endless Arrow, the Rain Razors, no secrets there, no cards up his sleeve. He's showing the nastiness right in front of her eyes. She's got Kyloria, though, but that popper, that battering bolt, is going to shut that down. If she doesn't have something like a Miragai or a Chromai to extend the turn, this could be over in a flash, as Brodi Spurlock has the tools here. Again, the equipment is untouched, but we're starting with a nasty one. This is a blast from the past, Miraging Metamorph.
Yeah, now this does not have go again, but what it is a Phantasm attack for 7, and unfortunately, this can be immediately popped, but it is incredibly powerful. The benefit of this card is that it's a 1 for 7, creates an Ash, and then can be Snapdragon Scalar to go wide. And this is definitely one that you just chuck that battering bolt in front of, and stop the turn in its tracks, and there it is. And she knew, there were probably other alternative lines of maybe sending something else, hoping that you don't have one of those 4 poppers left in hand. But he's dug so far into his deck with all these 3-of-a-kinds that it didn't even matter. He just had it.
I wouldn't be surprised if Brodi just goes ahead and breaks the entire kit here with the Bullseyes, the Snapdragons. He's got to find the right recipe, though. Rain Razors is a great way to open a turn or to just threaten that surprise element. We've seen how this works, where you show your opponent that card and you say, all right, well, you want to block over the top of it? How do you want to do this? But Brodi opting for a little bit of spring cleaning here and saying, all right, we're going to go ahead and clean up that Kyloria. That's a threat I don't want to deal with. And, hey, we're still going to send some to face here with 5 on the stack. That is a searing shot. No, sorry. That is a...
it's a searing shot.
It is a searing shot, yeah.
Yeah, so it's representing 4 damage. If it hits at all, it will make her lose 1 health as well. We have no more block on the equipment. The equipment is essentially stonewalled here. With both blocks being taken away. And we know the composition of the hand, and we can technically math out everything that could go on from Brodi here. So we're looking at a max of 5 damage. He could follow this up with the Rain Razors on top of it to push it to 7. Well, I should say 4. Push to 6, threatening 1 extra. He could then Bullseye Bracers in the... Endless Arrow. He could snap that, and then he could push the and he would arsenal the Endless Arrow at the end of that. So we're looking at a big turn with a lot of damage, and this is going to force some blocks to be committed. Question is, what does Mara have to swing back after all is said and done?
Brodi Spurlock being very patient. Again, all of his equipment is untouched. It's just there, waiting for the opportune moment to pounce. Lexi the Ranger wants to put a bullseye right on that spot into the semifinals. Just got to knock that arrow and commit here, but that searing shot is representing 5 the old-fashioned way with the extra tickle at the end, and that can bring Mara down to 3. Not quite in that Rain Razors respect range, but not far from it either.
Yeah, this is a big turn. Could be the pivotal turn right here to see who really kind of takes control of this game. If Mara is able to come out of this unscathed and be able to play some dragons here, that might spell victory for her, but Brody's doing everything he can to say no to that.
Mara finally with some ash in the bank that she can go ahead and convert into dragons. Why not? That's an investment I'd make every day of the week. Turn some dirt into a dragon. It's pretty good, right?
Sending a 5, and I was misinformed. Apparently that had been loaded off Voltaire with +1 instead of with the go again. My apologies. But here's the play. We have the play of, and this is a great card to have, dropping 3 dragons in, and that's exactly why you wanted to create the ashes. Rake the Embers allows you to really build that up, and now you just hope that you don't see another one of those poppers. There's 3 left in the deck, and he's dug through it pretty well, but now you have the ability to start this process of Kodachi Lock, and that's another good card. Snatch for 4, no go again, draw a card. It's going to get snapped no matter what here.
Brody with the thumbs up saying, all right, you came to play. I got you. I'm not as confident as I may have been because Snatch with the threat of a Snapdragon Scaler is a pretty nasty combination here. So he's talking through it. He's got a pretty good hand. Again, the Rain Razors is a wonderful thing to just show Mara because, again, it affects the blocking patterns. And with Mara at 3, that's Rain Razors doesn't necessarily go over to the top to present lethal, but maybe if with the follow-up arrow as well, you always have to keep that in mind here. So Mara Faris presenting red snatch to 4 attack, on hit, draw a card. Now there's no natural go again, but keep in mind Snapdragon Scalers can be an attack reaction to extend this combat chain, and I think that's probably the name of the game here because you've got this armada, pun intended,
there you go,
of Ashwings, Jeremy, Jonathan, Jennifer, Jeremiah. What else we got in? There's one left.
That's great. No, keep it going. Jedediah.
Jedediah, yes.
No, I was just going to send for the bill, please. The garbage can. What is it called? The trash can of dragons. Is that the term for a dumpster? There it is. Thank you,
Thank
Man
you,
in
production.
The Clouds.
Yeah,
Man in the Clouds been paying attention, and this is why we play the breaking point. We were able to set up a rupture turn, and breaking point says your arsenal. Goodbye.
You got to absolutely respect this. It's such a fascinating card here. It's kind of like a diet Command and Conquer.
It is, and it is going to do some serious work here because it's going to ask for 2 cards from hand or ask for that New Horizons.
Yeah, but if you're asking
for 2 cards, right?
Oh, Brody's not happy to see this. Mara Faris taking an opportunity to turn the tempo here. Wonderful turnaround. Mara Faris making Brody sweat a little bit with Brody holding onto that Rain Razors. Again, a card so pivotal to those go-wide turns, those big turns. Brody does not want to be kicked out of this tournament with Bullseye Bracers and Snapdragon Scaler still online. And keep in mind, we're approaching that Asvali pitch. We're going to see the Burn Them All soon. So Mara Faris will have a window to start throwing some arcane damage if those Bullseye Breakers break. But even if without that, if you just send the arcane damage and Brody's low enough, he's going to have to start pitching to it potentially.
Yeah, this was a great way to try and get yourself back in this game. You've got a 4-card hand. You have 2 ash. You might have some access to like a sigil, a sand cover, a sink below, things like that. But the endless arrow is going to threaten some serious damage. That was what we chose to arsenal prior to this. We could pop that Rain Razors onto it, and Brody literally just looking for ways to close the game out.
4 damage.
For just that die snatched away and replaced with the even more beautiful 4.
Yeah, those are beautiful, beautiful dice. Again, those are LSS originals. Just another breaking point. Oh, paired up with an E-Strike. Brody, happy to see those cards gone.
Well, it's so interesting because this possibly says you have something like a sigil in hand, because what you want to do is send all these dragons. Your turn has to be send dragons. And yeah, we're down to 3 poppers at this point. And if you can just send that wall of dragons turn after turn, possibly gain some life back, all you're looking for in your hand is a 0-cost go again, or a 0-cost card that allows you to keep going like an instant, and that card is incredible.
Ravenous Rabble wants to look at the top of the top card of your deck, reveal it, subtract attack off of it based off the pitch value. In this case, when your deck is essentially all reds. You know that there is a guarantee that that's going to be a 4-go again, hitting those breakpoints. Now, this doesn't necessarily have an on-hit effect. I think that Brody can comfortably, take the damage or even just give one card to block, but it's all of those Ashwings that are going to be a problem. They're buzzing. They're going to be annoying. It's like in the middle of the night when you've got that mosquito buzzing and you can't quite swat it. That's what these Ashwings are.
Yeah, I think you definitely consider committing a 1-card block here because you don't want to leak too much damage, because you know that turn after turn, unless you have a popper, these 5 Ashwings are going to basically spell your doom. And so, yeah, you can't let this be the turn where your doom is spelled.
I love this. It's like, all right, let me pick them up. All right, that's Jeremy, Jennifer, Jedediah, Jeremiah, and Jethro.
There you go. Just chuck them all out there. Yeah, go to 1. This is the turn you go to 1.
Oh, no!
Now, we do have the Snapdragon Scalers already used, so this is a breakpoint attack that you're going to have to drop something in front of. But at the very least, you can get out of this unscathed, and you know the turn's not going to continue because the Scalers were previously used.
Huge props to the poise of Mara Faris, who has really been on the receiving end for the majority of this matchup here. Brodi Spurlock is now seeing the pure rage of the fiery dragon horde that Mara Faris has been so dedicated to since the release of Dromai. And we do want to remind everybody that another Dusk Till Dawn little leak will happen after this match, so we want to make sure that you're tuned in for that at the conclusion of this matchup, and it looks like we're approaching it soon because Brodi Spurlock is staring down a 4-attack snatch on-hit draw card. Was that the card that was in Arsenal the whole time?
Which one? The Snatch?
The Snatch?
No, remember, she had cycled that Arsenal already a few times, so this was a new addition to it. But yes, I think this was sitting in Arsenal prior to this. No, she had just drawn into a 4-card hand. So I think this was the other card in hand off of the 2-card block.
New addition, also an amazing 90s R&B band. Where's Brian? Brian, you remember New Edition? Yeah, of course.
It's the quarterfinals of the Pro Tour, and you literally just asked about a 90s band to a man across the... He was in a conversation.
I need my validation.
Production.
I need my validation.
And you needed someone to just make you feel like you were seen. I appreciate that. You know what? You are seen. You're appreciated. Someone in chat probably knows what you're talking about.
Hey, we're back. It's a snatch on the stack over here. Brodi Spurlock really agonizing. Yeah. It's not the on-hit draw card, frankly. It's the on-hit go to the semifinals, frankly.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's on-hit lose the game, and you have to commit some amount of blocks. You can't lose here, and it's weird because if you give 2 cards, you're playing what your arsenal is. And honestly, the Rain Razors sitting there in the arsenal has oftentimes been a little bit more annoying than you would normally expect. You oftentimes just want to be able to play that out and say, hey, I'm going to win the game if you don't block correctly. But I don't know. Not right now.
Let's be real, though. Rather have it in arsenal than in hand because it blocks for a big fat goose egg. He's opting here to go ahead and flip the card. It's going to be a Winter's Bite, but the effective Lexi allows for a Frostbite to be created. And let's remember, a red line deck has trouble paying through this, but you just need to play one red card.
That is a huge pivot, though. Being able to establish the Frostbite and then tax the hand in addition is a very, very large pivot. And he can technically follow this up with dropping the arrow in, if he does have an arrow. I think, was that an arrow in hand, like an endless arrow?
I think he's still holding on to the endless arrow, and I think he's been holding on to it for multiple turns now. I could be wrong here, but ultimately that is something that I don't think he wants to get rid of, especially with Snapdragon Scalers, especially with Bullseye Bracers still online, and the Rain Razors just looming large. In this case, Frostbite is an expensive endeavor for Mara Faris to digest here, as the Winter's Bite as well. Going to tax a card out of the hand here, but what Brodi Spurlock is desperately hunting for here is a popper. If he finds the popper, that is a nice end to the turn, but at the same time, Mara Faris looking for a chromite. She's pitching a couple cards here. What is she playing? It's a Mira guy.
And that is the perfect card right now, because if he just drew into a popper, it doesn't even matter what he has in his hand, because he's just going to push dragons, at least for this very first one. And I don't know if you noticed this, but Brody is at 1, and so there's no real way for him to take that.
Okay. Is that American or Canadian?
Write that down. Okay. He's at 1.
1 it is. A 2 attack is not that scary. It's going to be a 1-card block. However, you have to respect everything coming your way. What you don't want to do here is just let those dragons go crazy. He's looking at his list here. Again, a lot of players on Lexi have brought down and dirty, which has been very helpful, and that's an omission from Brody's list.
Yeah, and we also haven't, he's dug so deep into his deck, we haven't seen a Command and Conquer circle back around.
He's played the 1 early on.
Yeah, and I feel like we had possibly seen another one come around, but I mean, he's sitting on 5 poppers total, and they are going to take a while to find, and this is the 2 block here. And this is the moment where Mara goes, please don't have a popper.
Oh,
no! And she just gets there. 5 dragons are going to come across. A trash can, a dumpster of dragons are going to come across and punch Mara's ticket to the semifinals on aggro